for holding this hearing. If you follow the news on trade, you know that Secretary Ross is a key Trump official negotiating with China, determining who gets tariff exemptions, and potentially reshaping the American automobile industry for decades to come. In the last few days, news reports about Secretary Ross uncovered a short sale of stock in a Kremlin-tied shipping firm. New developments show that while Secretary Ross was negotiating on trade with China, he may have maintained financial ties with firms connected to the Chinese government. A fund controlled by the Ross family reportedly owns a major international manufacturer of auto parts. This, unfortunately, is not a one-off story. Virtually every day in the news, you get whacked over the head with another report about Trump officials violating ethics rules or coming into questionable windfalls. You don't need a thick government rule book to recognize flagrant conflicts of interest when they're brought into public view. And when it comes to trade, Americans have a right to know it's their best interest Trump administration officials are looking out for at the negotiating table. The stories that we have seen in the last few days call that into question. Now, here's why these issues are so important. I'm on board with several of the administration's top trade priorities. First, tougher enforcement of our trade laws. Long overdue, colleagues. Second, cracking down on China, ripping off American technology and jobs. Also, long overdue. Updating NAFTA. You know, NAFTA was written decades ago. Clearly, it needs an update. Those are challenges that demand action, but taking action gets harder when you're surrounded by the specter of conflict of interest. That undermines the credibility of our negotiators. It certainly makes it harder to work in a bipartisan way in the Congress, and it makes it less likely the American people will accept the end results. It is also frustrating to watch as the administration's trade moves seem more like knee-jerk impulses than any kind of carefully thought-out strategy. Its most obvious accomplishment on trade so far is sowing a lot of chaos that has united allies in China against us. That is, unless you rank that behind the rescue of ZTE, an action that, in my view, has compromised, has sold out American security and gotten nothing in return. Chaos has consequences, and you don't have to take it from me. Tariffs on steel and aluminum imports are in place, but the process of determining what imports will be excluded is in a state of disarray. Businesses from sea to shining sea who are filing for these exclusions are waiting for the Commerce Department to do its job. So I've heard from potato farmers in my home state of Oregon who export nearly a third of what they grow and now will face tariffs in key markets like Mexico. I've heard from Pacific Northwest cherry growers who've got nearly 1.5 million boxes of cherries ready to ship to China. They're worried those cherries are going to end up stuck on the dock or rotting in a warehouse due to China's retaliation. Small brewers find their costs skyrocketing when they need new can lines and holding tanks, which of course are largely made of steel and aluminum. Now, a strong, well-planned strategy on trade would bring the full economic might of the United States and our allies to bear on China's trade cheating. That would give confidence to American farmers, manufacturers, and service firms rather than creating yet more bedlam and chaos. And I believe there'd be bipartisan interest here in the Senate in fresh policies that would strengthen trade enforcement and protect American workers. So today has to be a beginning of the end of the chaos. I hope that we'll see more from the administration In the days ahead, I think it is priority business to get a clear sense of what is going to be done to resolve these questions we hear about from our constituents every single day. And those will be the questions I'll pose to Secretary Ross. And I appreciate him being here and look forward to questions.